I think the value here is in like a Jordan Love. Where
Really?
I feel like, yeah, dude, like you were surprised there, but like plus 1,200, I think the numbers are going to be there. I think the team's going to be pretty good. If they wind up winning the NFC North, which I think they have the capacity to do, I think his numbers are going to be outstanding. And I also think about Joe Burrow as well. Like if Joe Burrow's healthy, I think he can put up some monster numbers as well. But I don't know. If you made me like find the best value, I'm not predicting Jordan Love to win the MVP, but I like him at plus 1,200.
Man. All right. Maybe that's the line's bias coming out of me. I don't see that. He, to me, when I look at this list, everybody makes sense except for him. Like to be in the top guy, like I'd rather have Jared Goff at plus 4,000, even though I think there's almost no chance he wins the MVP award.
I think Jordan Love's got a way better chance than Jared Goff, and I think the world is Jared Goff.
Jordan Love's played 10 good football games.
I know. He's young, man. I think he's a stud. What?
Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.
My friend, how are you today, sir?
Brett, Whitefield, podcast number 3. I mentioned last week, only 10% of podcasts get this far.
That's true.
So we are just getting closer and closer to being a real thing, man.
We're beating the odds. I like to beat the odds. I've been beating the odds my whole life, Joe.
Ooh. Brett, that's actually that's an amazing segue. Because we're going to talk a lot about odds.
We are.
Yeah. Because Adam Schefter, I swear, this dude, part of his yearly calendar is to look at all of the landmarks in terms of, okay, we're 100 days away from the draft. We're 50 days away from the draft. We're 100 days away from the start of the season. And he goes ahead and schedules the tweets for the whole year. So you know exactly when these things are going to happen. And so what was recently 100 days away from kickoff for the 2024 NFL season, and that's going to inspire a lot of what we're going to do today on speculating over some of the big storylines in terms of the needle movers and win totals and all that stuff going into this season.
Happy 100 days.
Thank you.
Yes. So the 100-day mark signifies both happiness in my soul, but also dread. Because when we get to the season, my life is flipped upside down. So
yeah, your situation's not normal, man. Like with the grading and charting that you do. I don't know how you do it, man. Like I'm such a routine guy. And the routine of the season is obviously a lot different than out of season. But your in and out of season routine is just, I can't even fathom it.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's day to day. Every day is a different routine. But like the week repeats. So like inside of a week, it has a routine, so to speak, but each day is different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
It's
different.
Tough. I've been doing it for 10, 11 years now, so we're getting used to it, Joe.
You're an animal. You're an animal, Brett Whitefield.
Yeah. Well, let's do this then. Let's dive into some DraftKings odds. I know we have some breaking news, the Nico Collins contract. We'll get to that because we are doing AFC South later today. So we'll get to Nico Collins for sure. But for now, I want to talk to you about DraftKings odds as our happy 100-day conversation. Super Bowl favorites, Joe. Let's start there. I've wrote down 8, the top 8, and I think it's fascinating. And I kind of want to know if you're buying or selling these teams or what you think, or if there's any lines that you like specifically. Obviously, at the top, we got KC plus 550. We got San Francisco plus 600, though. So they're looking just right off the top, looking for a repeat there. Baltimore plus 900 and Detroit plus 1,200. So DraftKings thinks the same best 4 teams from last year are going to be the same 4 this year. Buffalo also at plus 1,200. Cincinnati at plus 1,300. Houston from number 1 overall favorite last year to plus 1,600 to be Super Bowl winners. Philadelphia plus 1,700. Those are the top 8, Joe. Has anything surprised you on that list?
I'm not sure anything really surprises me, but I will say this. teams don't often three-peat, right? Like there's like a law of averages. I am not going to doubt Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. They have been unbelievable together. But just like law of averages, doesn't it say that probably not they're going to go three-peat for the last 6 Super Bowls? That's not a common thing. So I'm kind of like, as much as I can see the path, and I if you made me predict who's going to win the Super Bowl, I'd probably tell you the Chiefs.
Yeah.
There's probably a case to be made that that's unlikely just based on law of averages.
I think I picked New England 15 consecutive years at one point, just because they were always the favorite. But I agree with you. It doesn't seem likely that this happens to me.
I think you did name the Super Bowl champion. Like, I think it's one of those teams that you just said.
Okay.
And Detroit's kind of the team that I keep coming back to.
Oh.
I mean, the year-over-year continuity that they've been able to maintain with that coaching staff while also improving their roster is nothing to thumb your nose at. And I think their path in the NFC is pretty straightforward. Like, the AFC is going to be a bloodbath once again with KC, with Baltimore, with Buffalo, with Joe Burrow if he's healthy for Cincinnati. Houston's going to be a player in this. The Jets, the Dolphins. Like, the list goes on and on and on. Like, in the NFC, okay, it's either the 49ers, the Lions, or the Packers. Like, are you really believing in any of those NFC East teams?
Packers
like
aren't even listed here.
Right. I'm just trying to think of, like, who's that team that can make noise in that. Should we really take the Rams seriously with kind of the issues that they have with their front seven? I don't think so, man.
What about Dallas? No.
No, dude. That's there's not enough on that roster. We're going to get to the NFC East.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's too many holes in that roster for me to take them seriously as, like, going to win the Super Bowl. So I think about Detroit's path. I think about the continuity. I don't know. There's like a destiny component to them. I feel like that might be the value play, in my opinion, at plus 1,200.
I agree with you for sure. And not as a homer, like the odds plus 1,200. I mean, I'm getting, they were a play away from beating San Francisco last year,
right,
whose odds are twice as bad or half as good at plus 600 in San Francisco. So, yeah, I like Detroit. I think the thing that really stands out, though, 5 AFC teams in the top 7. So, like,
exactly,
it's crazy. I mean, It's crazy. So that bodes well for Detroit, obviously, because that means the path is clearly easier to get there. But from an odds standpoint, I don't know how you get away with putting 5 teams from the same conference in the top 7. Is there that much money coming in on these AFC teams?
Well, I think that's the important thing to remind yourself of with lines, right? Is you're trying to drive revenue, right? And so I think for as much as you do look at this and think, okay, these are the most likely teams, I think there's an intentionality behind the book to have it a certain way to drive money, because they don't build skyscrapers in these casinos with losing a bunch of money. So there's a big piece of that.
I want to ask you about your Buffalo Bills here, because they're at plus 1,200. What do you think there? To me, the roster has gone over some overturn. Are they going to be as competitive as they have been? Are they the team to take down Kansas City? What do you think?
I don't necessarily look at the Bills roster and have concerns that they don't have the capacity to be the same contending type team that they have been, right? I look at the exodus of talent, and I think some of that's a little overblown. I mean, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis were not helpful for this team down the stretch last year. Tre'Davious White's been injured for the last 3 years. Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are not the guys they've been, right? They moved on from aging, expiring players. And I think in place of that, they have a good succession plans in place with younger, maybe at this stage of their career, more dynamic options. And you saw the Bills have this surge of young players step up last year in a James Cook and a Khalil Shakir and a Dalton Kincaid and an Osiris Torrance and Christian Benford and Terrell Bernard. Well, there's just another list of players this coming year that I think is going to do it. So I don't necessarily look at the Bills roster and feel like there's an issue with the capacity to go do it. What I think it comes down to for the Bills is their defense has to show up against Kansas City or against Cincinnati in the playoffs. The Bills' defense in the regular season is terrific, super good. And against okay playoff teams in the playoffs, they're really good. But when they face Cincy or they face Kansas City, they can't get stops. And it's not about Josh Allen. When Josh Allen shows up in the postseason, this dude's unbelievable in the postseason. It's not Josh Allen. It's, can this defense show up? And Can the defensive line make the impact? Like, it can. That's what I'm thinking about. So capacity, yes. Will the defense show up when it has to? That's, to me, the X factor with the Bills and them, reaching their potential or getting over the hump.
You said something that I absolutely love. And because I love talking roster construction. I could talk roster construction all day. Like, how do we put the best team on the field? You said succession plan. And I think a lot of times media, especially big media, they're only looking at the NFL and each team from this big macro lens, right?
Yeah.
So they see this excess of talent. But you have a micro lens on the Bills, just like I have a micro lens on Detroit. I see the draft and develop plan. So like Detroit, for example, they let Chauncey Gardner-Johnson go. I've seen multiple articles from national media. Well, who's replacing? Like, this is a big loss when they didn't address safety. No, they drafted Ife Melifonwu 3 years ago. He's their plan at safety.
Right.
Kirby Joseph the year after that. Like, there is a succession plan there. That's what they're counting on. Jamison Williams. They let Josh Reynolds walk for a bag of balls. They could have kept him. They chose not to because they believe in Jamison Williams. Same thing with the Bills, I'm assuming, is what you're saying here, where they take this draft and develop approach. They're not fixing everything through free agency. They, Band-Aids, of course, here and there. But ultimately, it's like they have a succession plan in place for a lot of these guys that have left, and that's what you're telling me. So that gives me more confidence in the Bills than I probably had 5 minutes ago.
Well, I'm glad I can inspire some confidence. And part of me feels pretty good that there's a lot of doubt for the Bills because there hasn't been, right? Like, the Bills were supposed to win the Super Bowl the last 3 years, and they didn't. And I think I don't think you can help yourself, like, as an analyst, and you're perpetually saying, I think this is a year for the Bills. They're going to get over the hump. Eventually, you're like, you know what? I'm out on the Bills. I'm not doing this again, right? And now you got all the inspiration in the world that you needed, that they had some roster turnover to finally get off the bandwagon. And to which I say, good. Go ahead. Go ahead and sleep on Josh Allen and this Bills football team. And, maybe it'll be nice to have a season where you're not supposed to go win the Super Bowl from day one, and there's the chip on your shoulder and there's doubt, right? I think the best teams in the history of the NFL, they do such a good job of manufacturing doubt. Dude, I can't tell you how many times I've watched Tom Brady hoist the Lombardi trophy over his head and saying, nobody thought we could do it. They said we couldn't do it. They wrote us off. Tom, are you kidding me? Nobody said that. But you made yourself believe that. And therefore, it's the best athletes, the best teams, they can manufacture that doubt. And whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. Can you convince yourself that it is true and elevate your performance? And I think that's what the best teams and best players do.
That's so funny. I think so. After Tom won 5 in New England, hit the 6th, or when he had the opportunity to win the 6th one, he put out a video on Instagram of Tom Brady Productions. It was like a 3-minute long hype video about all the doubters writing off Tom Brady. Like, brother, you've won 5 Super Bowls. No one is writing you off. Like,
right.
But you're right. That's exactly right. When quarterbacks can find a chip, that's usually when they play.
Mahomes does it too now, man. Like, we watched him this past year. Like, brother, are you serious?
Freaking Kelsey at the podium when he won the Lombardi and they handed it to him. They doubted us. They never thought we could do it. Dude, nobody on planet Earth doubted you. Not one person, but okay.
In fact, this was inevitable, Travis.
Yeah.
But you tell yourself what you need to tell yourself.
Exactly. All right. So I don't want to put too much pressure on you to pick your team, but is plus 1,200 fair for the Bills? And I got somewhere I'm going with this.
I think there's pretty good value. The thing about the Bills, right, is like beating Kansas City in the playoffs. They beat them the last 3 years in the regular season. Okay. Yeah. And can we be honest about the last 2 playoff losses, the most recently in the divisional round and then 13 seconds? Those were as tight of football games as you can have. There's not a chasm or a gap between the two teams. The Bills just needed to go their way.
Yep.
And like Baltimore, to me, is a little crazy at plus 900. You want to talk about exodus of talent? Let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. New defensive coaching staff, all that they lost. The offensive line, plenty of question marks.
Yeah.
Like, I know they got Derrick Henry. Cool. That's great. When was the last time a running back was the difference between a team winning the Super Bowl or not? Watching the Chiefs go out there and win the Super Bowl with Isaiah Pacheco and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the Bucks are winning it with Leonard Fournette. Like, come on, man. Like, I think that Baltimore is a team that we should probably have some more questions about than saying that this is the team with the second best odds in the AFC. I'm not sure they're going to win their division.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. The reason I wanted to ask about Buffalo specifically is because right now, Joe, you can bet a Buffalo versus Detroit Super Bowl at plus 5,000. If you tell me you like Detroit's odds and you believe in the Bills, that seems like a very good bet. to me. Plus 5,000 for two teams that we view might be likely to be in the Super Bowl.
Brett
That's
Whitefield, the world deserves a Bills Lions Super Bowl.
that'd
Like, are
be
you kidding me?
incredible.
Like, somebody's gonna win that game. And you talk about two long-suffering fan bases that, I mean, could the world handle that?
No, the world couldn't handle it. And you know what? It's funny is because the Renaissance in Detroit started versus Buffalo on Thanksgiving Day, like 2 years ago now. Detroit hung with them all the way to the end, and you guys won on a last second field goal. I don't know if
Remember
you
that
remember.
throw Stephon Diggs over the
Yep,
middle of the field? Oh, man.
exactly.
Yeah.
And everyone in Detroit's locker room says that was the game they realized that they could play. Like they were legit and they were ready to win. And
I've not heard this yet.
they won out after that game.
Yeah.
I think they
Wow.
yeah. They won
Glad
like
that the
9 in a
Bills
row.
could wake up the sleeping giant of the Detroit Lions.
Right. All right, let's move on to other props here or future bets, I guess we'll call them. MVP. Now, it's funny because a lot of these correlate with the teams we see on the Super Bowl list, but Mahomes is the obvious guy at plus 600. Josh Allen plus 800. Joe Burrow at plus 900 with CJ Stroud also plus 900. Lamar Jackson at plus 1,000. Jordan Love at plus 1,200. That one sticks out weird to me.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy plus 1,200 and Jalen Hurts plus 1,500. You see a lot of running quarterbacks on here, which is funny because it is a stat award, unfortunately. But
is it? You can't tell me Lamar Jackson's the NFL MVP last year and then tell me that the NFL MVP award is a stat award because his stats were as mediocre as they could possibly be.
His passing stats sure were, but didn't he have 1,000 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns?
Brother, are you kidding me? Like, he was so far behind statistical production from Josh Allen, it wasn't even close. Like, couldn't touch him. To me, this is the award for the quarterback on the best regular season team.
That's probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I think that's who wins this.
Okay. So you just think best team with best record has. Well, so here's the thing. There could be some teams with very good records with quarterbacks that don't have like Jared Goff, for example. The Lions got the best record in the NFL. Is he going to put up a 5,000 yard, 40 touchdown?
Well, no, I think there has to be a statistical threshold, but also the quarterback on the best team.
All right. So out of that list, I feel like Lamar at plus 1,000 because he has won 2 is probably a good bet, even though we both agree that maybe shouldn't have won it last year. So.
Right. I think the value here is in like a Jordan Love. Where
Really?
I feel like, yeah, dude, like you were surprised there, but like plus 1,200, I think the numbers are going to be there. I think the team's going to be pretty good. If they wind up winning the NFC North, which I think they have the capacity to do, I think his numbers are going to be outstanding. And I also think about Joe Burrow as well. Like, if Joe Burrow's healthy, I think he can put up some monster numbers as well. But I don't know. If you made me like find the best value, I'm not predicting Jordan Love to win the MVP, but I like him at plus 1,200.
Man. All right. Maybe that's the Lions bias coming out of me. I don't see that. He to me, when I look at this list, everybody makes sense except for him. Like to be in the top guy, like I'd rather have Jared Goff at plus 4,000, even though I think there's almost no chance he wins the MVP award.
I think Jordan Love's got a way better chance than Jared Goff, and I think the world is Jared Goff.
Jordan Love's played 10 good football games.
I know. He's young, man. I think he's a stud. And I think if Josh Allen's has better interception luck, like that's what it comes down to, right? All of Josh Allen's interceptable balls got intercepted last year. If his interception numbers are better due to better interception luck, he's going to have the statistical case like he does every year.
You don't think any of those were on Josh Allen? Oh, sorry, you didn't. That's not what you said.
Yeah,
I misinterpreted.
No, they certainly were, but they don't have to pick off every single pass that's possible.
You're right. Yeah, like his actual interceptions thrown compared to his turnover-worthy throws were about equal. Where a lot of quarterbacks, like Brock Purdy, for example,
or CJ Stroud.
Lucky. Stroud was insanely lucky last year.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
all right. So you're a Love guy. What about Brock Purdy at plus 1,200?
I think
I'm not a Purdy guy. I hate Brock Purdy, by the way.
No, I'd put Tua and Brock Purdy in the same bucket. I mean, Tua has been as statistically good of a quarterback as there is in the NFL over the last 2 years. There's always going to be an eyeball test there that tells you that's not the MVP.
Okay, that's fair. But Miami, I don't think is in contention to have the best record in the league or even close to it.
What if they do? What if Miami wins 12 games? Would you be that surprised?
then to
They've
me,
won like 10 games every single year.
if they won 12 plus games, I think he's probably got to get to 13 or 14 to have the best record.
Really? Yeah, but you don't think at 12 wins he led the league in passing yards last year.
Yeah.
I think they're a better offense. That they have a tight end this year and Smith for them, right? You can say what you want about Jonnu Smith. I think for them he makes sense. They have a wide receiver 3 and Beckham to go with Hill and Waddle. Year 3 in the scheme with the running game that Tua could put up MVP numbers for sure. I think he did last year.
He might have the same restrictions Brock Purdy does, where it's just when they get inside the 20, they run the ball. Christian McCaffrey's going to score 20 touchdowns. The combination of Mostert, Achane, and the blind kid from Tennessee.
But the best thing that Tua has going for him is Mike McDaniel sometimes gets away from the run in the red zone, and he's chasing those passing stats. So if that continues, and the problem is Tua's limitations show up in the those restricted areas of the field, right, where it requires more physical talent, or whether it's mobility or arm talent, right? It's quicker.
I'll concede you this. I like Tua at plus 2,200 way more than I like Jordan Love at plus 1,200. How about that?
Oh, very, very interesting, Brett Whitefield. Well,
coach of the year. This one's interesting because this list doesn't necessarily represent any other list. It's just completely random, in my opinion. Matt Eberflus leads the charge at plus 900. That is wild to me. Jim Harbaugh also at plus 900. Those two guys, like, I don't know what we're looking for here for coach of the year. I guess Harbaugh makes a little sense because, like, if you can make the argument, if he does a quick turnaround in LA, he gets Justin Herbert right. Yeah, okay, maybe he's coach of the year. He did what the other coaches couldn't. But Eberflus?
Yeah. So the way that coach of the year goes is it's the team that exceeds their preseason expectations. Look at the recent winners of this. Kevin Stefanski last year, Brian Daboll the year before that to get the Giants to 9 wins with the worst roster in football. Mike Vrabel the year before that because Derrick Henry got hurt and they were still a playoff team. I think that's what it comes down to. That's why, who's last on the list? Andy Reid. Andy Reid, everyone expects him to go out there and win 14 games or whatever. So this is an award for the coach that does the most with the perceived least. And so I think you look at Matt Eberflus and you feel like, they could have a big resurgence with Caleb Williams and their defense is better. And, if he wins 10 or 11 games, then that might be enough.
See, this is a cart or what came first, the chicken or the egg thing to me. Like, if Chicago outperforms their expectations, to me, that's going to be more of a front office success because that's what they've had, a big injection of talent. It's not anything Eberflus did. If I'm looking at coach of the year, I'm looking for a team that marginally improved in personnel and got significantly better. That's why the Daboll one made sense. That team was terrible, and he took them to 9 wins. I don't see the Eberflus thing personally. Then you also have Robert Saleh plus 1,100. Again, that's another one that doesn't make sense to me. The expectations were high last year.
Yeah.
Because Aaron Rodgers and all that. He gets hurt. They stink. It is what it is. Well, Rodgers is coming back this year. So why? Rodgers is also the favorite for comeback player of the year, which we'll get to. But I don't see why that makes Robert Saleh awesome. That makes Aaron Rodgers awesome.
Do you know who I like a lot? And I don't know where he is because I can't find coach of the year. Maybe it's just me. I'm weird.
I can tell you.
I like, and I think this is going to have some shock value to you.
Nope. I agree with you.
I like Shane Steichen.
I knew it. Dang it. Yes. Plus 1,600.
Dude, can we give this man a little bit more love? He had the right play call too. Gardner Minshew missed Tyler Goodson on that last play, dude. They should have won the AFC South last year. And that team had problems, right? Anthony Richardson was hurt. Gardner Minshew has to play a bunch. Jonathan Taylor, the focal point of their football team. Everything was weird with him with the contract and the ankle to start the year. Really, what was the receiver talent that they had outside of Michael Pittman, a rookie, and Josh Downs? Braden Smith was injured all year at right tackle.
Yeah.
The whole cornerback room, and I'm not sure it's better right now, but that whole Isaiah Rodgers situation and drafting players in the 4th round that you thought were going to start, they get cut.
Yes.
Tons of transition with Grover Stewart had weird stuff going on. That team was kind of a mess, and they should have won the South and hosted a playoff game. I think that team is loaded in the trenches. I think they have the best O-line and D-line in the division. If Anthony Richardson has a pulse and can stay healthy, dude, I think that team's a sleeping giant.
Joe, not to mention, Jalen Hurts forgot how to play football when Shane Steichen left.
Bro, that's a great point.
Bro, like that offense was so bad after Steichen left. Like they could not get their crap together. I think they blew like 2 teams out to start the year, then their offense was bad the rest of the season.
The Colts were a top 10 in total offense last year.
It's crazy.
With all that.
With Gardner Minshew.
He was a mess, dude.
Yeah.
Like Anthony Richardson can't be worse than Gardner Minshew last year. Now, the problem with Anthony Richardson's reps, right? He's didn't play in college, has less than 100 passing attempts in the NFL. Like, who freaking knows? But I have a level of Shane Steichen that he's going to figure it out. And now who's their backup quarterback now? Joe Flacco. Right?
Yep. Yeah, Steichen is definitely my favorite coach of the year pick for sure. He's plus 60. He's 9th among the coaches right now. And we'll get to comeback player of the year, but Richardson's also my favorite comeback player of the year bet. There's one other coach of the year candidate though that I want to get your opinion on because you live locally, and that's
God.
Dave Canales.
Are we Brett?
What?
Are we going to talk about Bryce Young? Are we going to do this?
Plus 1,800, Dave Canales. Look what they've done. They've surrounded Young with talent. Come on. I love their offseason, Joe. I think it's one of the best offseasons in the league.
I think they did it. So shout out Dan Morgan. Getting the guards needed it. That was an absolute mess last year.
Wideouts too.
Wideouts. I have so little confidence in Bryce Young. That's what it comes down to. I just don't believe in him. Had no business being the number 1 overall pick. As limited of a player as you're going to find to try to play quarterback in the NFL. Doesn't have athleticism, doesn't have arm talent. He's small. He plays on his tippy toes. The ball dies on him. He doesn't work the middle of the field. There's just way too many restrictions for me to believe that Bryce Young could be a meaningful starting quarterback in the NFL. And so for those reasons, I'm out on any idea that Dave Canales is going to win this. Now, if they're a respectable team, well, build a statue for Dave Canales because he can get something out of Bryce Young. I just don't have a lot of optimism there.
Listen, I love the fit. I get the doubt with Bryce Young. You and me were on an island, by the way. We both felt that way about Bryce coming out. I think
all of a sudden we have friends in this island.
Right.
We were crazy. We were crazy for doubting Bryce Young, Brett Whitefield.
There were people on Twitter who they pulled the, I'm smarter than you card. Like, if you don't like Bryce Young as a number 1 overall pick, you're just a hot take artist searching for clicks. But
I just watched his tape and I projected at the NFL and I didn't feel good about it. Sorry, that's what it came down to.
You said something to me when we talked about Bryce Young that stuck, and I repeat it all the time on John Hanson's Sirius XM show. He was the least spectacular player ever drafted number 1 overall.
Least
physically
gifted. I just said it as well right here.
Least physically gifted player. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ever drafted number 1 overall. And it's so true. He was and they traded up for that too, which is crazy. But despite that, we can try to right wrongs. And I think their offseason with the guards, with the wideouts, they gave him a good running back in John Brooks. They drafted a tight end to go with Tommy Tremble that is good after the catch and can work the seam a little bit. They gave him a play caller in Dave Canales who's going to get him out of the pocket, try to get him in rhythm and throwing within some type of structure, because Young's big issue at Alabama was he had the slowest trigger known to mankind.
Mm-hmm.
And that maybe not as slow as Kyler Murray, but close. And then he gets to Carolina where his offensive line can't hold up, and those guards, I mean, you can't have a slow trigger when you have bad guards, Joe. And he just got abused last year. And then wide receivers that couldn't separate. So I just love what they've done. And I think there's a chance Carolina bounces back. They play in a really crappy division, that there's opportunity there. If they won 8-9 games, I think you can make the argument Dave Canales is worthy of the award.
Bryce Young has to take a major step. I think they, like you said, they have given him a chance based on what they've done in the offseason. To me, the defense is going to be big here. Coach Avero on the defensive side of the ball. Where's the pass rush coming from? I mean, it's a big question that I have. Is Wanham and Clowney going to be able to be enough there? Can J.C. Horn stay healthy? Is Dane Jackson good enough as a CB2? I mean, do they have enough at linebacker? I know Josie Jewell has some time on task with Avero, but like Shaq Thompson coming back from injury, I have questions about like all 3 levels of that defense. So I think you're counting on 2 major things coming together: that defense and then a player like Bryce Young having a pulse.
This podcast is powered by the Fantasy Points Data Suite. So I got to point out Bryce Young was ranked 28th among starting quarterbacks in accurate throw rate last year. That's not good, Joe. That's not good. So on top of a slow trigger, on top of being constantly putting himself in bad situations, he wasn't throwing the ball accurately either, which was the trait, Joe, that everyone hung their hat on. Most accurate quarterback in the draft. So
because it's important to be mindful of repeatable mechanics. You can't play the game, you can't play the quarterback position from your tippy toes and be able to find consistent throwing platforms to get the ball out on time and drive the ball with consistency with the zip necessary to not let it die on you and not allow the coverage to invade the catch point. I just see too many problems, man.
All right.
Not
Joe,
for me. Not for me.
Not for you. Okay. All right. Comeback player of the year. I got 4 candidates at the top that I think all make the most sense. Aaron Rodgers plus 125.
So many quarterbacks here. Yeah, go ahead.
Joe Burrow plus 200. Kirk Cousins plus 500. Anthony Richardson plus 600. We could entertain other guys, Joe, but the reality is one of these 4 dudes is probably winning it because they're going to start every game. They're going to rack up a pile of stats. All 4 of those guys are good players too. I think Richardson at plus 600 is my favorite bet because I think with the rush, accumulating stats is important for this award. With the rushing upside there. Now, the one downside is there's a chance he gets hurt again because of the way he plays. But
yeah, he's gonna have to get that figured out, dude. You can make a case for all these quarterbacks. I mean, Russell Wilson. What if he has a good year?
That's not happening. But
I'm unlikely there. But like Rodgers, Burrow, Cousins, whichever one has the best season out of those 3 is your comeback player of the year.
Yep, agree. I think Burrow plus 200. It sounds crazy because it's only plus 200. That's not a terrible bet, man.
Would that make him a 2-time comeback player of the year winner?
Oh, I think it would.
I don't know if that's ever happened, but
he won in 21, right? Or was it 22? 21.
Yeah, I feel like he did this.
Yeah.
21. He was the comeback player of the year. That's not a good place to be. 21 and 24 comeback player of the year. That's the deal with Joe Burrow, man. He's had something every year.
Yep.
Injury wise, if he can be healthy, that's a different football team.
2 dark horses I'll throw at you, and then we'll just move on from the whole DraftKings betting thing in general. But Justin Herbert plus 2,500. If Jim Harbaugh is a coach of the year candidate, they think he's the favorite. To me, that says Herbert is automatically a comeback player of the year candidate. He was also hurt. I know he played half the season at least, so
that probably works against him.
Yep, that probably works against him a little bit. But if he has a great season, you never know. And then the other one would be Justin Fields at plus 3,500 because he is cast off. Russell Wilson is bad. There's a chance, and I'm not a Fields guy at all, never have been. However, there is a chance if Justin Fields finds his way out of that football field, he will be better, significantly better than Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
And it could probably accumulate enough stats to get that done. And that's a good roster too, or not a good roster, but a competitive roster. So I think there's the cupboard won't be bare for him.